there is a very specific kind of panic that sets in.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 3 weeks after graduation.
Oh, yeah.
You've handed in the final paper, the cap and gown are in a box somewhere, and the noise of college life just stops.
It's dead silence, the panic of the blank calendar. It's visceral.
It really is. And the immediate reaction, the survival instinct, I guess, is to just fill that silence, to find a job.
Any job.
Any job.
Yeah.
As fast as humanly possible. The mindset becomes, I just need to stop the bleeding, get a paycheck, and tell my parents and myself that I'm employed. But the research we're looking at today suggests that this instinct, this urge to just check the box, is actually a massive strategic error.
It's the classic act in haste, repent at leisure scenario. But the stakes are so much higher than just having a boring few months. We're looking at data that frames the first job not just as a paycheck, but as a barometer for your entire career.
A barometer. That's a heavy word.
It is, right. A barometer calibrates pressure. If you set your professional barometer wrong at the very beginning, I mean, in terms of salary, culture, or just professional standards, it throws off your readings for years.
So you're playing catch up.
You might spend the next decade trying to correct a trajectory that was set in those first 6 months.
Okay, so today we are going to disassemble that panic. We're going to look at the test drive theory of employment. We'll decode the specific red flags in job postings that just scream underemployment.
And we'll get into the psychology of transition shock, which I think explains why even the best students often, crash and burn in their first 9 to 5.
And we are definitely going to talk about money.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, what to say to negotiate that first salary when you feel like you have absolutely zero leverage.
Right.
So let's start with this concept of the test drive. The source material uses this analogy that I found really compelling. It argues that college is essentially a simulation.
It's flight school.
It's exactly flight school.
Yeah.
You're in a simulator, safe on the ground. The first job is the first time you are actually taking the plane up.
Right. And crucially, it's the first time you're flying in formation with other pilots. The biggest shift isn't the technical skills, it's the social dynamic. You're moving from a student-teacher hierarchy, which is, vertical and protected, to a peer-to-peer dynamic, which is horizontal and, frankly, exposed.
And this is why the fit matters so much more than just the job description. If you panic and take a job at a disorganized company or a place with a toxic culture, you're not just having a bad time.
No.
You're effectively learning how to fly a broken plane. You start picking up bad habits.
Exactly. You imprint on that first environment. If your first workplace is chaotic, you might start thinking, well, chaos is normal. If the communication is passive-aggressive, you learn to communicate that way.
And unlearning that is so much harder than learning it in the first place. There's also the issue of the resume stain. The source material is pretty blunt about this. If you take a bad job out of desperation and you quit after 4 months, that doesn't just disappear.
No, it lives on your LinkedIn forever. And you have to answer for it.
And this is the part that really stresses people out. The next hiring manager is going to look at that 4-month stint and ask, so why did you leave?
And this is where the strategy comes in. If you are forced to answer that question, you are already on the defensive. You can't just say, well, I was panicked and I took the first thing that came along.
Right, it makes you look impulsive.
Or desperate.
Yeah.
So the whole goal of this deep dive is to help you avoid ever having to answer that question. It's all about due diligence. You have to treat the interview process not as them selecting you, but as you investigating them.
Which brings us to cultural alignment. I think when you're 22, you tend to look at the hard assets of a company. Does it have a cool office? Is the brand recognizable? The source argues you need to look at these soft assets. Specifically the values of the people you'll be sitting next to.
You have to ask yourself, do I want to be these people? Not just do I want to work with them, but do I want to become like them? Because you will.
Osmosis.
Osmosis is real. If the company is hyper-conservative and you're a creative disruptor, you're going to suffocate. If it's a chaotic startup and you need structure to thrive, you are just going to drown.
So let's talk about the trap that makes people ignore all of that. Underemployment. The stats on this are actually pretty frightening. The research shows that 41% of recent graduates are currently underemployed.
41%. It's a staggering number. And to be clear, underemployed here doesn't mean you're working part-time when you want full-time.
Right.
It means you are working in a job that doesn't require the degree you just spent 4 years and, tens of thousands of dollars earning.
It's the barista paradox. You have a degree in economics, but you're pouring lattes because you need rent money.
Precisely. And look, there's no shame in honest work. But professionally, it's a delay. It stalls your earnings growth and your skill acquisition.
The source material offers a really clever sort of detective trick to spot this before you even apply. It's called the double posting red flag.
Oh, this is a great tip.
So here's how it works. You see a job listing from a company that says, Junior Account Associate, recent grads, welcome. It looks perfect. But then you do a little digging on their careers page or on a different job board, and you see another listing from the same firm for the same set of duties.
But the requirements are totally different.
Exactly. The second listing says, no college experience necessary.
That is the smoking gun. It tells you immediately that the company does not value the degree for that role. They are just casting a wide net to get warm bodies.
So if you take that job, you are, by definition, underemployed from day one. You're overqualified and almost certainly underpaid. But let's play out the worst-case scenario. You're listening and thinking, okay, that's great advice, but I have $12 in my bank account. I cannot wait for the perfect, culturally aligned role.
Reality is reality. I get that. If you have to take a job for survival, the source material suggests a pivot in strategy. Don't take a bad professional job. Take a survival job.
Okay, what's the distinction there?
A bad professional job is a 9-to-5 office role that creates a career cul-de-sac. It sucks up all your time, it drains your mental energy, and it puts a weird title on your resume that confuses future employers.
Right.
A survival job like waiting tables, bartending, retail, it's honest, it's flexible, and it's clearly temporary.
So it leaves you with the mental bandwidth in the daylight hours to hunt for the real job.
Exactly. It's better to be a bartender with a degree who is actively interviewing for marketing roles than to be a junior data entry clerk at a company with no upward mobility, stuck in a basement from 9 to 6. Don't let the survival job block the path to the career job.
That leads us perfectly into the other major trap, the revolving door companies. These are the ones that look like professional jobs. They might even be at famous companies, but they burn through grads like fuel.
The churn and burn model. A terrific company can offer a terrible job.
So how does a candidate spot this? Because obviously, the hiring manager isn't going to say, hi, welcome to the meat grinder. You'll quit in 3 months.
No, you have to ask investigative questions. But, and this is key, you have to ask them in a way that doesn't make you sound difficult or, suspicious.
Right. Asking, so do people hate it here, is probably a bad move.
Probably not the best opener, no. The source suggests focusing on trajectory. You want to ask questions that force them to reveal the retention data.
So something like, does the company have a history of employing recent grads?
That's a good baseline. But then you drill down, ask, where do people typically go after this role? Do they move up internally or do they tend to move on to other companies?
That is such a smart way to frame it. Because if they say, oh, most people move on to other opportunities outside the firm after a year, that's code.
It's code for everyone quits.
Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas if they say, well, Sarah started in this role 2 years ago and she's now a manager and Dave is in product, that shows a real pathway.
The source also mentions a red flag with external recruiters. If you're working with a headhunter, listen to what they're selling.
Yes. Are they selling the job or are they selling the exit? If a recruiter says, look, just do this for a year, put your head down, and then you can go do whatever you want.
Run away.
Run away. They are admitting the job is a prison sentence. They are pre-selling the parole. It means the role itself is unbearable.
Okay, let's pivot to a solution that I think a lot of graduates overlook because of, well, ego.
Internships.
The ego trap is so real here. You have the diploma, you feel like you've earned a full-time title. Going back to being an intern feels like a regression.
But the landscape has shifted, hasn't it? Completely. The try-before-you-buy model is becoming standard for top-tier firms. They use paid internships as a de facto probation period. If you refuse to look at internships because you want the title associate, you might be locking yourself out of the best companies in your industry.
So an internship at a top firm is better than a full-time job at a revolving door company.
100%. Because of the network, the training, and just the brand name on your resume. But you have to manage it correctly. You can't just be an intern and, hope they notice you.
You have to be active.
You have to advocate. While you're there, you need to be having conversations about full-time conversion, and crucially, you remain a free agent. You keep your external job search going. You don't stop interviewing until you have a permanent offer in writing.
This brings us to a really fascinating psychological concept in the source material, transition shock. We've talked about the tactical stuff, resumes, interviews, But the mental shift is where people really, really struggle.
It's the semester by semester mindset versus the endless now of the workplace.
Let's break that down, because I think this hits people way harder than they expect. For 16 years, literally since kindergarten, your life has been sliced into these neat 15-week chunks.
Right. You have a syllabus, you know exactly what success looks like, you write the paper, you get the grade, you get that little dopamine hit, then you get a break.
Winter break, summer break, the cycle resets.
And then you start your first job.
And there is no syllabus.
None. There is no A on your report card at the end of the week. You send an email, and nothing happens. You finish a project, and your boss just says, okay, here's the next one.
It's the absence of feedback loops.
It creates a massive anxiety spike. The source calls it a feedback vacuum. High-achieving students are basically addicted to grades. When you take the grades away, they feel like they're failing even if they're doing fine. They mistake silence for disapproval.
So how do you hack that? If the boss isn't giving you a report card, how do you stop yourself from spiraling?
You have to manufacture the loop yourself. You can't wait for the annual review. That's death. You need to ask for specific short-term feedback.
So not just, how am I doing, which is too vague.
Right. How am I doing puts the burden on the boss to psychoanalyze you. Instead, ask something like, I'm looking to improve my turnaround time on these reports. Can you give me one specific thing I should tweak for next week?
That's good. It forces a small, concrete piece of feedback.
And it shows maturity. It shows you know you aren't perfect. You're signaling, I'm here to learn. And that actually builds trust much faster than pretending you know everything.
Let's talk about the long game for a minute. There's this lingering idea from our parents' generation of the company man, the idea that you stay somewhere for 25 years.
Oh, yeah.
But the Bureau of Labor Statistics data just blows that out of the water.
It's a total myth. The average person will hold 12 jobs during their career.
12. That number really changes the perspective on this first job.
It should lower the blood pressure. This first job isn't your marriage. It's more like your first date. You don't need to find a home for 20 years. You just need a launch pad for 2 or 3.
But, and this is a big but, even if it's only for 2 years, the money you accept on day one follows you.
It does. This is the compound interest of your career. Your first salary sets the baseline. Your next raise is a percentage of that base. Your next employer will ask what you were making previously. If you accept a lowball offer now, you are mathematically lowering your earnings for potentially a decade.
So you have to negotiate. But this is the terrifying part for a 22-year-old. You feel like you have no leverage. You're just lucky to even get an offer. How do you ask for more without them rescinding it?
First, get the fear of them rescinding it out of your head. It is incredibly rare for a company to pull an offer just because you asked for 5% more. They've spent months finding you. They want you.
Okay, so say the offer comes in. It's lower than you want. But the hiring manager says, listen, this is the budget. I literally cannot pay you a penny more.
This happens all the time. If the door to a higher salary is closed, you have to open the door to trajectory.
What does that sound like in the room? Give us the script.
Okay, so they say, no more money. You say something like, I understand the budget constraints right now. However, I'm confident I can deliver significant value quickly. Can we agree right now to a performance review at the 6-month mark instead of waiting a year? And if I've hit X and Y goals, we can adjust the salary to target number then.
Oh, I see what you did there. You're not asking for money now. You're asking for a promise of money later based on proof.
Exactly. And you get that in the offer letter. Review at 6 months, eligible for salary adjustment. That is money in the bank, just delayed.
And if they say no to that?
Then you know they aren't invested in your growth. And you have to decide if you can afford to take the role as a stepping stone or if you need to walk away. But usually, a reasonable manager will agree to a review. It costs them nothing today.
It all comes back to that theme of due diligence. I really feel like the main takeaway here is just to slow down.
Slow down to speed up. The panic tells you to sprint. Strategy tells you to look at the map.
And don't look at the map alone. The source material emphasizes building a personal board of directors.
This is so crucial. When you're in the heat of the job hunt, you have tunnel vision. You see the salary or the cool brand name, you totally miss the red flags.
You need someone outside the tunnel.
You need a parent, a mentor, or even just a skeptical friend to look at the offer. They might say, hey, this contract requires you to sign a non-compete that lasts for 2 years. Do you realize that? Or, you hate commuting, and this is an hour each way. Are you sure about this?
They bring the reality check.
They protect you from your own desperation.
So to wrap this up for the listener who is refreshing their inbox right now, waiting for an offer.
Take a breath.
Ugh.
Remember the 12 jobs stat. You are not choosing your fate. You are choosing your next step.
And I want to leave us with a thought that really struck me while reading through all this. We talked about the pressure of the first job. And I wonder if the reason it feels so heavy, so much heavier than the second or third job, is because it's the only time in your life where you have to translate potential into proof.
That's the tension right there. In job number 2, you have a track record. I did this, I sold that. In job number 1, all you have is a promise.
I can do this.
Right. You are asking someone to bet on what you might become. And that is a scary ask.
It is.
But remember, they want to make that bet. They're looking for reasons to say yes. Your job is just to make sure the casino they're running is one you actually want to play in.
Love that. Do the due diligence, watch out for the double postings, and don't be afraid to negotiate the trajectory if you can't negotiate the cash. Thanks for the deep dive.
See you next time.